I'm just about, it's quite an entrance, isn't it? Like a catwalk.
Yeah, well, hey, you dressed for it. So, and we're so thrilled, aren't we, to have Melanie here today. And it's a book tour, Hon.
It's a book tour.
Proper pro. Yeah.
What we were talking about earlier.
We're jinxed.
We're not.
Blooper reel.
Yeah, that's one for the blooper reel, that's right. So, last day of the book tour.
Yeah.
Last day of the book festival, that's a nice little synergy there.
Yeah.
And the only northern date in your book tour.
Yeah, well I did. Do you know what? I started, it wasn't a book tour, it was like, I mean, this is a whole new world to me.
Yeah.
I was in Edinburgh and Liverpool, but that was more around the launch of the book than literary festivals.
Yeah.
I've just learned how to say literary.
Yeah.
Just at the end of...
Yeah, we'll stick to some of the less complicated words for me, I think, because I'll stumble. So I think Sheffield has got a bit of a special place in your heart, and we love a Sheffield mention, so...
Yeah, well, do you know what, it's so funny, because this was on the agenda, and I was so excited, because I did lots of, like, these southern ones. I was doing, like, Henley and Cheltenham, and I was rocking up, and I'm not joking, I was looking around just going, what am I doing here? And everyone was lovely. Everything's been really, like, positive and received really, really well, but I was looking out at the demographic just thinking, who are these people? And then I was like, Sheffield is featured so much in the book and so much in the history of the Spice Girls and me as a solo artist that I was like, that's the one I want to do.
Yeah, and I think you played your first solo gig.
I did, at the Lead Mill.
At the Lead Mill, yeah. But yeah, well, and you're amongst northern friends up here, so we won't stand on ceremony. But you've said, I mean, it's a beautiful book. There will be, Mel's been signing copies, so there's loads of pre-signed copies outside when you leave, if you're intrigued, if you haven't already read it. But you've said that you shouldn't write a memoir until you've lived a full life. So why now? Like, do you feel like you've lived a full life?
Yeah, I think I've lived more than one full life.
Yeah, well,
I think I've had a few lives. But you know, I think we all do, don't we? I think we're so busy, always striving to whatever's next, whether it's a career thing, a personal achievement, paying the bills at the end of the month. You know, there's always something we're trying to get towards, and we overlook the past sometimes and our achievements. And yeah, when I suppose I was on stage in 2019 with the Spice Girls, we did stadium shows, and it was such a moment for all of us. It had been a long time. We'd been on stage together in 2012 at the Olympics in London, and when we went out there, we didn't really know what to expect. The tickets went on sale, they sold out really quickly, so that was a good start. But then when we got out there, we just weren't prepared for the amount of love and joy and appreciation we were getting every night in these sold out venues. And it just, I think because we were old enough now to really, really appreciate it, that we started to reflect differently on everything we'd done as a band. And personally for me as well, you know, I started to feel differently about myself and my place in this world. And then of course the pandemic came quite quickly after that, and there was more time to be still and to think. And just those couple of things just made me feel like, you know what, maybe it is a good time.
And was this a lockdown book? Did you write it during the lockdown?
It was started then. Yeah, I was actually approached by my publisher, who was lovely, and I'd always been nervous of memoirs, autobiographies, because, you know, I've had a lot of my life played out in the tabloid media, and that's, you know, if you read the book, you'll see that's been quite devastating at times, and it's been hard to live with. And so for me, I just had these like images of these headlines that an autobiography can bring, and it put me off. But then when I met Ollie at Welbeck, and he was like, look, it's your book, it can be whatever you want it to be. And I just thought, wow, you know, I've been written about so much that it would be really nice to tell my story in my words. So yeah.
And here it is, and it's so personal and it's so beautiful, and we'll talk about some of the content in a bit more detail, but I mean your voice just shines through, and it's so loving. It's such a loving book about the people that you've come across and all the adventures that you had. And I felt good reading it, thinking, yeah, she's taking back control of this stuff. So now it's your story.
Yeah.
Should we start right at the beginning where the book starts? And I must say, the pictures are solid gold. So the personal pictures that you put in are lovely. And it starts when you were little, and you paint a really loving picture of how life was. And there's this beautiful picture of you at the Jubilee, the Silver Jubilee, in your little outfit. And so life was pretty good, I think, when you were tiny.
Yeah, I mean, we all look back romantically and fondly, don't we? And it just going back to the pictures, it was so important to me, because I think most people are the same, aren't they? When you get someone's book, straight to the pictures. And it was really important for me in this book to be really descriptive. I wanted it to be very visual. So when you go back to the 70s, I talk about the sweets we were eating, or the television shows you were watching, and I just kind of really wanted to paint that picture. And back to the very beginning of my life, obviously I have very little memory of it. Sometimes I think the photographs spark the memories, don't they? And I was born in Merseyside, in Worcester Hospital, and lived in Main Hill with my mum and dad, for the first few years of my life.
Yeah, and so it was all settled. And actually, talking about the 70s, when you said in there everybody was smoking all the time, inside and out, and I'm a little bit older than you, but I remember that from the 70s, and sitting in the car with the bag of crisps and your bottle of pop while your mum and dad were in the pub. It was absolutely a memory I share. But things changed for you, didn't they? So I think your mum and dad separated. I don't know how amicable that was, but life changed for you quite dramatically, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. And, obviously being so young, I think all children, your life is your life. So you just get on with it. But then looking back on reflection, I had my very stable home life with mum and dad. And then, their relationship didn't work out. And I think I lived at my grandparents with my mum for a little bit. And then, my mum was housed in council accommodation. And then she'd met somebody else, and so there was this new man, and this new father figure. Of course, being a kid, you don't want anybody to replace your parent. So it was a time. It was very turbulent. It was a lots of change for me.
And it must have had an impact on you, or maybe you didn't realise until later. But what did that do for you? I mean, for good or for bad?
Yeah, do you know what? I think that's something I really explore in the book, because all of our life experiences, they kind of mould us, don't they, and shape us. And there were definitely, parts of my personality which have benefited, I think. It's made me very determined to succeed, it's made me very independent, but then also it's made me quite vulnerable as well. But everybody's life is their life, isn't it? And you go on that journey and see where it takes you.
And that determination really comes across in the book. So you found performing, didn't you, at quite a young age? And when you talk about it sounds quite punishing, but the practice that you put in and to get the routines right. Yeah,
I always feel really grateful, because my daughter's 13, and I look at lots of young people, and I found my passion really, really young. And, for me, that was really good, because it was something to really focus all of my energy into. And I love my sport, obviously. But I think I was just very active. I was very energetic. If I wasn't playing sports at school, I was in the drama production or the choir, or I was at dance classes. And it was really being up on stage, that's when I felt free.
Yeah, and it must have been good for your confidence as well, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny. I think, like lots of performers, I'm not an extrovert in any way, in everyday situations. But when I'm on stage, I feel strong, and I feel much more courageous if I'm on stage.
And you got that, like you say, you got that bug really quite early, and that's a real gift, isn't it? But what about the perfectionism? I mean, when I read some of the efforts you went to, and the energy you put into it, I don't know, does it tip over sometimes into being too much?
Yeah, it has done. It definitely has done. I feel very grateful. I studied classical ballet from the age of about 8 until I was 19. And of course, that's a real discipline. And, that kind of really feeds into my personality. I'm not very good at multitasking,
right.
But if I take something on, I give it my all, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's really benefited my career, but sometimes it's not benefited my personal life.
Yeah.
Because I can get, very consumed by things.
And you're going to perform at Sadler's Wells in
I
January.
am.
I'm so excited to read that. Tell me more.
I know. Gosh, I was approached by Sadler's Wells, and an incredible choreographer that works there went along and had a piece commissioned for me to be in, to be developed with me. It's contemporary dance, which I've never done. But I like a challenge. Anyone who knows me knows I like a challenge, especially a physical one. So yeah, that's my next big thing.
Wow.
So I get back into training next week, actually. Yeah.
On the stage at Sadler's Wells. I mean, I know you've played some amazing places,
my goodness.
but it's such a buzz.
Yeah, it's like a full circle moment because I started my performing life started as a dancer. That's the way I thought my life was going to go. I've always loved singing, but I just thought it was so hard to have that as a career. So I pursued a dance career. And then, I was so fortunate, Spice Girls happened and all the wonderful things that have happened. And then to be approached by Sadler's Wells to perform there, it's like, whoa, like little me will be going, what?
Yes, it's so, I mean, it's such a kind of, I don't know, like you finally arrived. I know you've been a Spice Girl, like that's amazing. But Sadler's Wells is something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something.
I'm working on my damehood.
Oh.
And I think this is the box.
Maybe we'll start a petition tonight. I don't know if you can petition for a damehood, but yeah, Dame Melanie C has got a real kind of ring to it. So that's super exciting. And you come from a family of grafters, don't you? So graft, like work hard at the thing that you love. Sounds like that's a pattern for you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very northern thing as well. And from the generation that I come from and the generations before, they've had to work hard, to make ends meet. And yeah, all of my family, and I have this huge, complicated, wonderful family, everybody is a grafter, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very Scouse thing, and I think it's a very Sheffield thing as well. Like, I always say to my kids, whatever opportunities you get, go and just give it your best shot. Like, go and sweep the toilets if that's what you need to do. There's no shame.
Yeah, and whatever you do, just going back a little bit on what I was saying that I tried to do, is whatever you do it to the best of your ability, because it leads to other things. You might have to start off cleaning, but that could lead to something else. If you show that you're willing to work hard, you can achieve anything.
And it's a beautiful message. There's so many beautiful things about the book, I think, about what it's, more than just a memoir about the Spice Girls, which is, is something, but it's got loads of other stuff in. And I wondered, was it that ability to work hard that kind of put you in the right place for the famous flyer that you got, asking you to, inviting people to come for an audition?
Yeah.
Did it kind of put you in a good place, ready for that opportunity?
Yeah, so I'd been to Performing Arts College. I was lucky enough to get into a great college in Kent, Sidcup, and I was there for 3 years, left college, and was auditioning for lots of different things. I wanted to work in the West End or commercial dance, and it's really hard. There's so much competition and just not enough work. And I was getting a bit frustrated, and I was actually auditioning for a cruise, which was something I never wanted to do, because I knew if you're out cruising, then, that sounds wrong.
That's another book.
That's the next book. If you're out on a cruise, you're missing opportunities. You could be missing auditions or, big opportunities back in London. So it was kind of like, oh gosh, I've been out of work for a few months, and I have to get some paid work. So, sliding doors moment, that the flyer was handed to me, which was for a girl band.
And you said that when you saw it, you knew that it was for you. Was it really as like a kind of light from the bolt from the blue that you knew?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I didn't, but I just turned to my friend, and I can see the moment so vividly now, and I just said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
Girl band.
And there was all these twists and turns, and I wasn't able to go for the second audition, and I was ill, and then I ended up getting into it somehow, and it became the Spice Girls.
But they called you back, didn't they? Because so you said you missed the first one because you were poorly, and then so they must have seen something in little baby Melanie.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny because all of the success that the Spice Girls had, even all of the music that people would know that has been released, was written after we left the management that put us together. But to the credit of Chris, who put us together, he saw something, in the dynamic of the five of us.
Yeah, and he wasn't wrong though, was he? I mean, he wasn't. Blimey, because I would have been maybe in my early to mid-20s when the Spice Girls like arrived, done into the universe. And, you know, so I was kind of on the surface of it quite cool and, you know, wasn't really into pop. And I was blown away. I mean, and most of the girls around me were blown away because you were just so there, weren't you? I mean, from the minute you landed. What were those early days like when you were... Did you live in a shared house or was that a fantasy?
No, we did. Yeah. With our original management, we were in a house together in Maidenhead, which is... Maidenhead, it's quite near Slough. And I say Slough because I think if you watch The Office, that's in Slough. So it's outside of London, and you know, it's not a fancy place by any stretch of the imagination. And we were in this house together, and it was amazing for us because it's when we really bonded and got to know each other, and it's when we kind of started coming up with this master plan to leave this management that had actually put us together in the first place.
That's proper girl power though, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well, because there is something so magical about the five of us.
Yeah.
When we're together, I mean, you know, even now, all these years later, there's just the energy. It's so sparky. And it was like that from day one. As soon as, because Emma was the last person to be, you know, in the band that completes the five of us. And from that moment, it just went, we just knew we had to... I feel quite, you know...
Yeah, and it was proper powerful. It was, I mean, people talk about, you know, the whole thing was girl power, but there was something... I remember seeing Wannabe, maybe you did it on breakfast telly or something, and I was living in London and getting ready to go to work, and I remember stopping and kind of going, whoa, you know, and like I say, I was all into house music and cool, and actually it stopped me in my tracks, because I was like, who are these? Plus
what the fuck's that?
Yeah, well, that was on my Sunday best behaviour. Now you've lowered the tone, thank you so much. The true colours will show. Yeah, it really was a what the fuck moment. I mean, it was the clothes, it was the energy, it was the, even before the nicknames, because I think they came a bit later, didn't they, the nicknames? Did you come up with those?
No, actually, it was, so Top of the Pops had a magazine,
right.
And the editor, Peter Lorraine, who was now a very successful music manager actually, we were having lunch with him and he said, oh, you should have some. And then in the magazine, they went back to the office and started giving us these silly nicknames. And they just stuck. And actually, in the US, the book's called The Sporty One.
Yes. Do you mind?
No. You know, the Americans need a bit of help.
Yeah. The Sporty One, right. And you were always like in trackies and doing backflips and all that.
It's more in America, they know us more by our nicknames than our actual names. So it made sense.
But you were huge there as well, right?
Yeah, really big. I mean, it was international. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I said to my husband on the way in, he gave me a lift because it was pouring down with rain. I think you were being interviewed in the car when you were for Radio Sheffield, and the heavens opened. And I said, do you think Melanie's the most famous person I've ever interviewed? Because I have done a few. And he went, 1,000,000%.
That's
so you are, it's official. Maybe you're the most famous person on this stage. But yeah, you were. It was. I mean, for anybody who's too young, unfortunately, to be around then, it was a phenomenon, wasn't it? The Spice Girls were a thing.
It was nuts, and something again, which I mentioned in the book, is even now. There's not a day that goes by when a Spice Girl or the Spice Girls isn't mentioned either in a newspaper, on a TV show, or even, you know, if someone says girl power, or there's some reference to Spice Girls, there's some reference to the Spice Girls. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I said the word icon as I was introducing you, and I wasn't shitting, but I mean, like, genuinely, you and the girls are completely iconic. And I must tell you this anecdote, and we can maybe see what you think about girl power. So I've been married a couple of times, and the first time, so I call him my current husband, this one. But the first husband, we got married in '97, so Wannabe had just come out, and he was an Irish Catholic, so he had a massive family with lots of tiny little nieces, all really cute Scottish nieces. And we had the reception like you do, we were having the knees up, and somebody put Wannabe on, and all the men left the dance floor, apart from the gay men, like my gay friends, and all the little girls and all my girlfriends, and we danced to that like you wouldn't believe. I think we played it about 3 or 4 times, and girl power was just so uplifting, wasn't it? It was. Did you coin the phrase, like the group?
Do you know, there was actually a fanzine called Girl Power.
Was there?
Yeah, and I think at the time, I mean, the 90s, what a decade. You know, it was such a time of positivity, wasn't it, and optimism, Labour, you know, anti-government, the music scene was amazing, you know, Britpop was, you know, doing huge things. And when we wanted to be a girl band, we wanted to make music, and we wanted to be famous, and we wanted to travel the world, but we didn't really have a message. We felt like we knew we had our experience. All of us girls are from very different parts of the UK, you know. We have similar backgrounds, but from different places. But we have these shared experiences as a young female growing up in 90s Britain, and that's what we wanted to sing about. But we experienced sexism really quickly in the music industry. Yeah. And so that made us quite defiant, because we were told that girl bands wouldn't sell records or magazines. And so we knew we had a point to prove. Yeah. And that's really when we started talking about girl power. And I think it was, you know, Jerry probably shouted it out first in an interview somewhere, and it just stuck. Yeah. And it was a feeling. But you know, you talk about your gay friends as well. You know, we have a huge following in the LGBTQ+ community. Yeah. And
I must interrupt you, and you got an award.
I did.
Which
I'm an honorary.
Honorary, what's it? Honorary Gay of the Year?
Yes.
What an absolute award.
I thought it was quite ironic because everybody thought I was gay. Yeah. And now I'm an honorary gay.
As if that was a bad thing, though. It was like, it was thrown at you like a slur, wasn't it? I mean, seriously, like we would have loved to have had you on our side, do you know what I mean? I'll say that as a bisexual woman. It was like, we'll have her definite any day of the week. Just outing yourself in front of her. It's been taking 60 years. I'm sorry, I'm so carried away.
But I think, you know, the thing is with the Spice Girls, we really celebrated our individuality, but we were unified, and that's what made us powerful. And I think that's what really appealed. Obviously, we started shouting about it for the girls, but then we realised there was a whole community of people. It was also, we're identifying with it, so it just became about inclusivity.
Yeah, and it was such a powerful message. I mean, and we'll maybe talk about the dark side of the 90s, but that girl power message, that, you know, two fingers up, I love what you're saying about the band just decided this is our manifesto and we will show them that you can sell records and how many you've sold. It was really liberating and powerful for all of the dark side. And I think for me, the Spice Girls really captured that. I mean, you were such a gang, weren't you? Yeah. I don't know if you were a gang behind the scenes, but you certainly looked like
we totally were. And, you know, we had each other's backs. And, you know, I talk about, obviously, all the big iconic moments, you know, one of them being when we met. I never know whether to call him Prince or King. I just call him Charles.
I think you can, you're
but that, you know, very famous meeting where his bottom was patted and there was lipstick left on his face and we completely broke protocol. You know, I'm actually quite shy and I would never do that myself. But I'm so pleased I was in a band with girls that was so courageous that I was a part of that. And I think as well because, you know, predominantly the Spice Girls are working class. You know, Victoria's a bit posher.
Well, was she really that posh? I don't know.
She's not posh. She's just posh as the rest of us.
She's quite posh now, though, isn't she?
Yeah.
Now she's a designer.
Well, Jerry's posh now.
Yes, that's a nice fit husband as well. But that's a different thing.
You know, what we were doing, the things we were doing were so incredible, and you know, we were fulfilling our wildest dreams. But I think because of where we were from, we wanted to do it for everyone else. You know, we were like, look what we're doing, and I think that's what made us so mischievous, because we were put in these like extraordinary situations, but we just wanted to go.
I saw you once. I got freebies to London Fashion Week. It would have been. Well, you only had a very brief time, didn't you, as the 5 of you? So it must have been while there were still 5 of you, or maybe when you just 5 became 4, maybe. But and I remember seeing you, and I got so giddy. I might have been a bit refreshed before we went to see it, and like with maybe a glass of fizz or something. And the guy behind us knocked. We chatted all the way through like this. There they are. And I got tapped on the shoulder and told to be quiet.
Well, was that at London Fashion Week? Was it Julie McDonald's show when Melanie walked?
Yes, it must have been.
Look at that memory.
Wow, we've still got it.
The hormones are on fire.
Yeah. Brilliant. So then, I mean, all of it, it just thrills me to hear you talking about it. But there was a dark side. I mean, the 90s was the time of the lads mags, really vicious tabloid press, and I know you had more than your fair share of that, didn't you?
Yeah, it's really shocking, and I went back for a number of reasons actually. One for the book, and another because I'm currently in the middle of a phone hacking claim against certain tabloid newspapers, all of them. And for that court case, I've had to go back and read all of these articles from the 90s and noughties, and the language that is used, and the what's the word? Oh, it's a really wanky word. The narrative that is used. Alright, sorry, I think that's a wanky word. What's the narrative? But it's at the Theory Festival. Don't know how many hours are in that. But yeah. So the narrative that was built around myself and other celebrities, predominantly women in the public eye at that time, is disgraceful.
Yeah, shocking.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it was in part of backlash to, these powerful girls doing the two fingers up and saying we're here and get used to it. Yeah. It's kind of like you needed to be pushed down a bit. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of that. Sadly, I think that still goes on, and God, these bizarre cultures that exist in certain workplaces. Even now, I look at the sidebar of shame. We all do, and a lot of the articles that really anger me, written about women, are often written by women.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? But yeah, it's really weird, and I think there's definitely a plan to try and keep women in their place, because I just think, if we're allowed to shine, it's quite frightening for certain men.
I think so. Girls owning their power, women owning their power, well, anybody, gay people owning their power, is scary, I think. And what impact did that have on you? Because here you were, you'd got the thing that you'd been so determined, whether you wanted to be famous or not, but you'd worked so hard to get there, you were having your moment, and how did all that affect you? What was fame like?
Yeah, I think it was... When we got there, I don't want to take away from all of the amazing stuff, because it was incredible.
Yeah.
We were truly living our wildest dreams, and I wouldn't change anything. But like everything, there is a dark side. Nothing is all one thing. And I wasn't prepared for that. And I don't think you can be. When you're a young person aspiring to be famous and you're all ambitious, you just think of the good stuff. And of course there's bad stuff. So being written about, being criticised, being pursued, by paparazzi, and of course at the time as well we were being listened to. Yeah. There was a lot of personal information going out into the mainstream media, and we didn't know how, and it was a pretty scary place to be.
And no one around you to look after you, I guess. If I don't know what your management were like, but it was the time of Princess Diana, who was practically hounded to death, but did you have people around you who were taking care of you? I
think the problem was that what happened with the Spice Girls was unprecedented. And everybody, because we had an incredible team, Virgin Records were wonderful. We had a great record label, 19 management were brilliant. We were really looked after, but everyone was doing their best because they didn't know how to handle it. I think everybody with hindsight is like, we could have done we could have handled that differently, we could have done a better job there, but at the time we were just like, it was very reactive, and I like to think things are changing a little bit more in the music industry, and and in high profile sport as well. Like recently I've just been talking about, people are pulling out of competitions, or people are pulling out of shows because they're putting their physical and mental health first. But that wasn't an option in the 90s, you just had to get on with it.
Yeah, well, and I hope that your experience does help people now, that that there's some learning, especially on the business side of music, that people aren't there just to be kind of rinsed of all their value and then discarded.
Well, this is what is so bizarre to me. It's like, if you nurture an artist and you take care of them, then there's longevity. Because it's all about money. You're a product at the end of the day. As soon as you start making lots of money for other people, they just put you out there, but they're kind of, it's the golden goose, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, it's an important message. My son's a musician, so not that I don't think he'll ever be Spice Girl level, but I don't think he wants to be. But it's that kind of, I think definitely there's something about us all taking care of our mental health, and it is in the narrative now, if you want to use that word, that we talk about it, which is why your book's so important, I think, because it's a bit like, well, if Melanie C went through that, you know, and you're so open and so honest, so vulnerable in the book, actually, you know, it enables other people, I think, to talk about their stuff. So in the book, there's a really, I mean, it's very hard to read. There's an incident where somebody makes a comment to you, and it seemed to me that seems to be a bit of a pivotal moment in how you were thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those moments where people don't realise the power of their words, you know, that we had a financial backer in the original management team, and he made a comment about my thighs. I did a backflip one day in a garden, and he just said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm surprised you can do a backflip with thighs like that."
What
And
fucker.
yeah, what's wrong with them thighs? But yeah, I think he just caught me at a very vulnerable moment, and I started to question, because, you know, I was getting closer and closer to my dream, and I was thinking, oh my God, don't I look the way I need to look to achieve this thing? And yeah, so that was one of the things. It was like a little catalyst, and certain other things started chipping away. Yeah. And then that's when I started, you know, being more concerned about what I was eating and my exercise, and all of these things spiraled with other, you know, there was other outside influences as well.
Yeah, and I think they call it orthorexia now, don't they? But that real attention to cutting some foods out, and, you know, so that you're being healthy, but really you're not being healthy, is the term I've used. And you talk a lot through the book about control, and I wonder if it was that, were you trying to control this really kind of crazy environment around you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a few things that happened, you know, that being one of them. I had to control the way that I looked. That's something I could do. And then, of course, when we became successful, so much of your life you don't control. Yeah. You know, you're in this bubble, and you know, you're travelling around, your life isn't your own, your time isn't your own, and the things you can control. Well, for me, I could go to the gym, and when I was in the gym, nobody bothered me. Yeah. So that was like my little space. And then also I could control what I ate. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's really, really complex, and I think everybody's experience, you know, whether it's eating disorders or, you know, I also suffer with depression and anxiety, and I think, I mean, just to say that was kind of the final deciding thing for me to write the book, was because I've experienced so much pain in my life, and I just know that when I was in that place, reading about other people's experiences that were similar to mine, or hearing people speak about it, was such a great comfort to me, and I want to do that for other people. Yeah,
I mean, it's such a generous book in that respect, and I know when I was reading those passages, you know, I've had my own troubles, and I know lots of people have, and you read it, and there's a real connection. Well, I felt really connected, and it was, you know, here's this famous person who on the surface, you know, looks to have had it all, and yet you're so open and so vulnerable. I think it's a really generous act, actually, because it does add to this culture where we can talk about these things, and here you are sitting, you know, absolutely stunning, successful, top of the world, and you've triumphed over it. So for me, it's a really uplifting story. So tell me a bit about the recovery then. How did that happen? And you write really in a really detailed way, actually, about the recovery. What prompted it?
I think what to actually, you know, to get on the road to recovery.
Yeah. Was there a point where you just went, enough's enough?
Yeah. I couldn't control things anymore. Yeah. I think I'd been, you know, I was in a situation probably throughout my time in the 90s with the girls. You know, it wasn't immediate. It was something that escalated, and we came off the road in 1998. And Melanie and Victoria were pregnant with their first children, and, you know, Jerry had already left, and so it was just a natural time for us to have a little bit of a break. And I went to LA and I started my first solo record. And that's when I first reached out, because I knew the way that I was living was unsustainable, and I couldn't continue to do so. You know, I hadn't eaten properly for a couple of years. I was obsessively exercising. But I still had this control, but I just knew it was wrong. So I reached out and I tried to get some help, but I still didn't feel like I was quite ready. And things kind of went in another direction, and because I'd been under eating and over exercising, and then it got to a point where I started binge eating. Yeah. And I think because my body was so starved of nutrition, it kind of took over. I think my body, I mean, I'm so grateful to my body because, excuse me, I think it just went, enough is enough. we need food, we can't carry on like this. But because I was so out of control, that really frightened me. And I didn't know at the time, but I was also suffering with depression. So I went along to my GP, and that was the first step.
Yeah, and so courageous. I mean, I love that deep knowing. It's like there's some survival instinct in us, isn't there? Even though we're on a kind of self-destruct mission, that kind of deep thing. I think if you can just listen to that, if you can quiet life down enough that you can hear what's going on, it can be the making of us.
Because
really.
I think you always know. We don't want to admit sometimes, because sometimes the instinct is telling us things we don't want to hear. But you do know. And
how do you look after yourself now? Because I know, like me, you've got a daughter, and I think when you're in that kind of recovery from depression and all sorts of other things that have gone on for you, it's really important, isn't it, when you're bringing up a younger, you've got a daughter, it's like, so I don't know, like, has that helped your recovery and self-care?
From the minute I got pregnant, actually, because I just felt, so responsible for somebody else, and it was a huge relief to me as well, because all of my life it had been about me. Especially being a pop star, it's a very, very selfish life. And to have somebody else to think about and to take care of, because of course, as soon as if you're lucky enough to get pregnant, then this person's growing inside of you. So I started looking after myself properly for her. So she completely liberated me.
Yeah, do you know, it's a really similar story to when I had my first, and that, the timings were similar. And I think, it's like you've got a reason, as if you yourself wasn't a reason enough, so you've got this other reason. That's beautiful. And then, I mean, I could talk to you forever, but I'm really conscious I want to open the conversation out. But let's just pause for a minute before we go to questions. With the Spice Girl reunion, so you've been in recovery, you've been a really successful solo artist. Tell me about the reunion in 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the last one we did, it was amazing, and it was funny because Victoria, after the Olympics in 2012, she'd said, girls, that's my last. I don't want to do it again. She found it really, really stressful getting back on stage, and we respected that. And so for many years I was like, no, it's 5 or nothing, 5 or nothing, 5 or nothing, and then I just felt like there was this. People approach us all the time, every day. We hear such beautiful stories about how the Spice Girls influenced them or, inspired them. And it just seemed to be snowballing. And an offer came in for one night. It was like silly money for one night. I was going, I'm not rehearsing for ages for one night. So one show went to 8 shows, which became 13 shows, hopefully many more. And it just felt right at the time, and you know what, it was so right. And I think with the Spice Girls, because we get asked all the time, when are you going to get back on stage? And when it happens, the stars are in alignment and it's magical. And so as much as we try and get our shit together, we just got to wait for everything to be right.
I like that, I really like that. And it's like the gang's unbreakable. I think I've read somewhere that you said, I didn't become Sporty Spice, I am Sporty Spice. It's like, and I guess, I don't know, once a Spice Girl, always a Spice Girl?
100%. The thing that annoys me more than anything is when people announce me as former Spice Girl.
Oh, no.
I'm not former, I'm a current Spice Girl. Forever.
I love that, always and forever. And what's the WhatsApp group like?
It's a bit dry, to be honest.
Oh.
It's like late night. If someone's kicking off, if Mel B's kicking off, which happens a lot, then it'll be rife. But it's been a bit dry recently.
Oh, maybe you want to cheer it up a little bit.
Get your phone out.
Should open a can of worms.
Have a little glass of something fizzy and then just get going. Well, so we're gonna rest I'm gonna rest my vocal cords for a bit. So if we can have the house lights down a little bit. I said house then, I sounded a bit like one of the royals. And I think we've got colleagues with mics. Yes, we've got one colleague there and one at the back. So, do your worst. So I've got the lady up there with the red, and then I'll come down to the front here. And I always at this point go, let's have 2 women first. So, get yourself ready. Born ready.
That in there, do you know what? I'm really puzzled by this. It's a lovely marigold with a little sparkly thing in the middle, a little crystal, but these like jelly ball things. What's that about?
It's a decoration. Don't drop them, we'll be all over the place.
I feel like it could be like a little stress reliever. It's a bit slimy.
It looks like water, doesn't it? So I think I'm told that in the production this fills up with water. There's a
Oh, is it to do with the production?
yes, I think so.
Isn't it about climate change? I don't
Yes.
think those balls are very climate
I
friendly.
think that's just because it's for us girls.
Oh, is it?
I think
Yeah,
that's a bit
that's how they've dressed it up. For
Yes,
us.
let's make the place nice. So I digress.
Hi, Melanie. One thing I wanted to ask. Hiya.
I couldn't see you, but I knew it was you.
When I was reading your book, one thing that like proper wound me up was when you talk about how you were kind of silenced and you were told like, oh, maybe don't speak in this interview. And the thing is, when I was a kid, all I wanted was to hear you speak. That is why I was watching. And it did used to wind me up if you did get interrupted, however. But anyway, I was wondering if there was a particular point where you were like, actually, I am going to speak, I'm not going to be silenced anymore.
I tell you what, I'm making up for it, aren't I? Do you know what? There were definitely times when I did speak, but I feel like it was an environment, and I don't just mean within the band. I just mean in just being a Spice Girl, the outside world. So many pressures where I was just afraid to say the wrong thing and be ridiculed. So some days I felt confident to speak. It's so strange because I'm not going to say that. Well, I think often I'm the Spice Girl that makes the most sense, so they should just let me speak. Not the most, but more than some of them anyway. I think that came, for me, becoming a solo artist was so liberating for me because I was able to express myself and my own thoughts and feelings, and I love being a Spice Girl, and I love being part of that collaborative process and what we create together. But I think it's really important, for me, sometimes I'm not very good at talking about my feelings, but I can really express them through my songs. And so to be able to do that as an individual was really important to me. And then I got to do interviews where I just got to speak and answer all the questions. And I really liked it.
Good. Marvellous. So I think we said the person down here at the front. Who's got the mic? Don't hog it. Yeah, go on then. Hang on, we want to hear your words. So, and you're wearing a sporting t-shirt. Epic. Right, let's have it.
Hello. My question is nowhere near as eloquent or deep actually as that lady's, but I just wanted to say I actually met you in Manchester on Valentine's Day, by the way, and you were amazing. And
what was I doing?
Was it Valentine's Day? Yeah, you were singing. You were gigging.
Was it
too?
Yes,
it was. Yes. And I said then thank you, and you inspired me. This isn't just about me, by the way. It's not my book tour, but you inspired me as a Spice Girl, and that day you continued to inspire me. And I just want to say thank you first of all, and just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I'm not going to cry again. My question is actually quite simple, despite the start of it. You mentioned very briefly that you played netball, and as a very keen netballer, I first of all wondered A, what position, and B, what are you doing tomorrow night? Would you like a game?
So, try and guess what position.
I want to say centre.
Yes!
Oh, me too! See, you can't play, because I'm playing, so it's a bit awkward.
I was centre. Sometimes they put me in goal defence, and that would really wind me up. And tomorrow night I'm actually going to a Halloween party.
As a zombie netballer.
Yeah, well, do you know what?
You could have a head as a
I'm
the
going,
ball.
should I tell you who I'm going as? Don't tell anyone.
No, just between
Zombie Mel C. No, I'm going as Zombie Scary Spice, I'm joking. I'm going as Morticia Adams. But, there's no Barry Knight in it.
Is that you?
No,
Morticia.
So, I actually hate fancy dress. I feel really self-conscious. Does anyone here like fancy dress?
No.
I hate it. Oh, I'm going to feel right now. Where we go? Absolutely, I've got to go out.
Fabulous. Well, what a collective range of questions. Right, so I'm just going to say the ones I can see. So the person with the long blonde hair, and then we'll go up to
me.
The person with the white jumper. So we'll do
You
two
see,
on this
it's
side.
such an issue, this, isn't it? Because you want to be fair.
I know.
So you do everyone far away, and then the
She's
poor
too
person with the
central.
mic is like all over the shop.
She's too central.
Mic technique, girls.
So sorry, can you hear? Hello.
That's it, we can do it.
Hi, I was 9 when Spice Girls came out. I was a gymnast. I'm a Liverpool fan. I could do backflips. I had my hair back. I was dark back then. Still am now, but I try to hide it. You gave me a place at school. You gave me a place, everything. I was Sporty Spice. I wasn't the weird one anymore. I would imagine there's a hell of a lot of people that were similar at the time as well. Did you know then how you were going to make everyone, like so many people, like myself, just feel accepted?
At the time, I really didn't, and I am so grateful now. There's like so many things about the Spice Girls that were unintentional. You know, they were just like these happy accidents. And you know, for me, that obviously is the biggest one, because I do meet a lot of people that share that experience. And you know, when I was in the band, sometimes I felt like, you know, well, the media was telling me that I was the plain one, the boring one. And people always go, oh, you know, because you had to wear you had to wear the tracksuits, and you know, and it was like I didn't have to, I chose to. But yeah, so now I think it's amazing, isn't it, how things change? Because I think people are always like, oh, don't you want to be one of the glamorous ones?
As if they had to compare you.
I know, it's so weird. That's kind of totally not what the band's not even about, isn't it? It was about our individuality. But what's so brilliant now is it's all about sport.
Yeah.
I'm like having a moment. I had to wait, but now we are having our moment.
Just in that same quadrant towards the back with white jumper on. Very sporty and you cut.
Hi Melanie. I followed you all the way through the Spice Girls and then into your solo career, watching your Northern Star tour at Sheffield City Hall. So I've always been wondering, it's quite a simple question, just out of curiosity. Was your silver tooth that you had, was that a temporary tooth, or was it something that you then had fixed permanently and then replaced? Because I was actually, because I was young, obviously when you had that, I painted my own tooth with some
Yeah.
So I've always been curious.
Oh gosh, the gold tooth. It was gold. It was actually a veneer. So I have veneers anyway. I chipped my teeth when I was a kid, and I've had veneers ever since. But yeah, it was just over the top.
Where is it now?
That was the next one. I was going to say, people usually say, where is it now? I think I chucked it.
Probably worth a fortune now.
Couldn't I? You might not fix the teeth with it.
You could have had it in a museum. Kirsty, what did you paint it with? Ouch. That's commitment though, isn't it? On the mic, sorry.
Sorry, I put some nail polish on and then that kept coming off quite quickly, so I put layers of it on. And then I actually, while it was wet, stuck some foil on.
I'm sorry.
Nothing more than a Melanie C fan, clearly. Right, well, let's have some more. Shall we go to this person down at the front? Down here? Down at the front, please. And I'm going to try and, if there's anybody over there, I'm going to try and do a bit.
What about us?
Apologies. And then I'll come over to you. I'll do that.
Apologies for darkening the mood somewhat, but do you have any professional regrets?
Any professional regrets? Do you know what I really, really hate? being on reality TV. It just isn't me. I mean, you know, each to their own, but whenever I've been in an environment which is, you know, any kind of reality, I did the games here in Sheffield, broke me. And I just hated that. It's just, I feel very uncomfortable. But I'm a big believer in, you know, obviously regrets are a bit of a waste of energy, aren't they? So just to try to learn from them. So then I did Dancing with the Stars. So that was quite different. I didn't realise that was quite as reality-ish as it was. But I don't have regrets per se. But I've learned some lessons.
And it's ironic, isn't it, really? Because the book is so real, like you're so real, I think, and down to earth and just genuine and lovely, and then you can't do reality TV, which is supposed to be real.
Yeah, the thing which I always hate about it is, well, first of all, the production always try to break you because it's such good telly. And then the other thing is, often the other people you're on them with are so desperate.
Yeah.
That sounds awful. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not an extrovert. I'm not going to wander around like singing and performing, because I don't do that in reality every day. Maybe a little bit.
Little jazz hands in the show.
You know that thing when people are obviously like, you know, they want to follow their career, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable.
Well, and let's face it, you've not had your career, you've had that bit of your career with one of the most famous bands of the ever. So, you know, so you're going to start. So I'm going to see if there's anybody in this group, then I'm going to, sorry to make you run about, and then I'm going to go over here. So,
get your steps in.
Anybody over here like to ask a question? Oh, right down at the bottom here. And then we'll have time for a couple more. Thank you.
Hiya. Congratulations on the book. Like everybody else, you've inspired me with Spice Girls and Solo. I just wondered, like, what's next for Melanie C? Like, where you're going on to now?
Well, straight after this, I'm going home to make sure my daughter's done her homework tomorrow. But I'm dancing at Sadler's Wells in January, and that's kind of my focus. So that. What I'm, you know, my first love and passion is music. So new music. Hopefully releasing some stuff next year and DJ.
I saw a picture of you at Pasha, like,
I tell you what, this year's been great. I did Pasha and Glastonbury.
I saw you on stage. I didn't see you. I saw a little film of you with Blossoms.
Yeah.
On stage at Glastonbury.
Blossoms.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
I mean,
I know. I had the best Glastonbury. It was my first, and I think it was the first one in 3 years with everything that's happened. And it was incredible. And I was just busy about doing loads of stuff. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, you're out there doing it, aren't you, babe?
I'm out there doing it.
Absolutely fantastic. Right, so we'll. I see you. There you go. There's the mic.
This is the most exciting moment of my life. Hi, Mel. Oh my God. So, my sister texted me the other day, I was at work, and she said, I know a fact about Melanie C that you don't know. And I went, right, she went, she's single. And I went, no. Have I missed this? She went, you need to get yourself on the old social media. So if I turn heterosexual today, can we?
Let me tell you something. This is a bit mean, but it really made me laugh. So, yes, I'm single. It's in the book. So my ex-boyfriend is my manager. It's very amicable. We're still good friends. But people have started emailing the management email to ask me on my ex-boyfriend has to keep going. Here's another one.
Can I have something to say about you wanting to? But I did have a point, man. It's lovely to see you, and I really appreciate everything you do. But we were listening to your songs last night, and like you say about how much passion you put into your work, I really felt it last night, and you know, you're fantastic. So,
Thank you so much.
down here to this person.
Come here again.
Yeah. And then you'll be our last with the hat on. Here we go.
So, hi, sorry.
Hiya.
Hi. Well, I'm Thais. We are from Brazil. Maybe you remember already or not. I don't know. Well, one thing that I loved in the book was to see your fan side, because for us, we are the fan ones. We don't know how it's to be, if you have artists that you like as well. So my question is, when you see your fans, and we are always trying to follow you around and do everything that we can, do you kind of get curious to know, like, okay, this person, what they do? What do they do in their lives? Where do they work, or are they here just for me? They don't do anything else with their lives.
Yeah. First of all, I go, how do they afford it? One, they're not at WEC. Two, they're flying all over the web. And I'm like, yeah, but I have been so lucky, myself and the Spice Girls, right? We are so appreciative of our fans. And what we love is, because obviously it's a long time now, and I know there are people in this room that I've watched them grow up, and I've seen people have children, get married, get into the careers that they always dreamed of, and I feel like it's like this massive family around the world. And I was in Oslo last weekend, and I've not been to Oslo for years. And as soon as I got to the hotel, I recognised these faces, and it's literally like this international family. It's so lovely. But I do get curious to how they afford it. What do you do? How do you get so much time off work?
It's a good one. And my colleagues, they're always like, oh my God, Melcy again.
Her again.
Yeah, like holiday. Or Melcy. Amazing. Thank you.
Oh,
Fabulous. And of course the book is dedicated to fans. It's all for you, isn't it? I didn't forget. So, the person with the hat there. Who's got a Spice Girls tee on? Has it got how many of all five iconic?
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I just want to say thank you so much for writing the book. I know how difficult it must have been for you, and you have inspired so many people, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your story with us, because I know how hard it was for you.
Thank you.
So my question is... It's a good question, I promise. It's a good question. So you said for the last 26 years that Spice Girls have featured in the media and in the press probably every single day, which is true, because you're the best. What is the most ridiculous story, or the most ridiculous headline you've ever read about yourself?
Gosh.
Told you it was a good one.
Have you got a good one?
No, really. I don't. I mean, apart from the sort of gay scandal, which was obviously ridiculous, I can't think of anything no.
I just find it so puzzling, isn't it, that, I mean, it's different now, thank goodness, but like in the 90s, they were obsessed, weren't they?
Yeah.
With who was straight and who was gay. It's like, really obsessed. What's it got to do with anything?
I think there was probably quite a lot of good sort of puns when Stop didn't get to #1. That was probably quite comical, but nothing really ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't think of it. I mean, there's nothing that stands out immediately.
What was the worst thing you read about yourself?
God. Did you read it? Did you read it? Gosh, I mean, I don't tend to read it so much now, but I think at the time, because obviously now we have social media as well, don't we? So it's really different. But back in the day, it was, the big tabloids, the red tops, and you'd just be scouring it to see what they were saying, and it was usually quite mean, especially because there was one newspaper that supported the Spice Girls, and then another that didn't, because they're like rivals as newspapers. I'm very conscious to not say the name of one of the newspapers. But Matthew Wright at the Mirror was really, really mean. And it was great, because when I met him, he was shaking like
What did you say to him? Or did he just give him a look?
I was fine. He apologised to me, and it's just banter, whatever. But he said some really disgusting things.
But bants is just like the lamest excuse, isn't it? Bants. Yeah, it's just really lame, so lame. But thank you all for those fabulous questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody. But if we could bring the house lights down, we'll just bring this one baby into line, shall we? That was fab. Really good, great quality questions there. Thank you, everybody. So the lady at the front stole my last question, which was going to be what's next. But yeah, what is next? More DJing, Sam as well? Yeah, well that was, definitely. In that slot, either you on your own or you the girls.
So I'm hoping to be at Glasgow. Spice Girls won't be doing Glasgow next year, sadly.
Victoria to sell out.
I think Victoria would quite like to do Glasgow, but the timing just doesn't work.
It's always other years.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. You know, this year is the 10th anniversary of Spice World, the movie and the album, which of course Universal Music won't push that. So we'll be supporting that. But there's other things. Myself and the girls, we talk all the. We've got a meeting this week actually. We're always talking, trying to get, just trying to do the right thing, because there's so many things we could do. We want to do the right thing. But yeah, next year for me, music. The book, I mean, I'm really pleased I've done the book, but it took so much more time and energy than I ever imagined, and it's kept me away from my music. I've done shows this year, but I need to get back in the studio.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait. And I just want to, thank you, as we finish, I mean, if you haven't got it already, why not? Go and get it on the way out.
And I did the audio book. And it took me fucking ages.
Avocado. Right. But I just want to say, like, in all seriousness, it's such a gift of a book. I mean, it's so generous, so I said right at the beginning, you're so loving and such a gorgeous spirit. So I just want to say thank you. You've been an absolute gift for us. I'm so glad you chose to end your book tour with us.
Well, thank you so much, because I know originally we weren't going to be speaking today. You've stepped in at the last minute, and wasn't she incredible? Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed, well, how could you not have enjoyed it? So well.
Legs a little bit, keep it running.